Good afternoon. It is March 12th. We're back for our afternoon session of the County Council, and we're going to begin with a proclamation recognizing Autoimmune Awareness Month by Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you very much. I would ask Dr. Ashford, who's here, come on down, and I think we have Lauren Cornegay. Are you here as well? Come on down. I don't know what happened with the lights, but I promise you won't be asked to dance. Come on over here. There we go. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm getting myself together here. Thanks for Dr. Ashford and Miss Cornegay. I said it right. So they're joining us. And I think we also have Miss Stephanie Izzard and Dr. Kapunin. Come on down as well from MCPS. Please. I'd also like to extend an invitation to anyone else who either has an autoimmune disease or has a loved one who has an autoimmune disease. If you'd like to come down, you're welcome to join us. One of the big things about autoimmune diseases is that many people are suffering in silence, and it's not one of those things where you can tell if someone's dealing with it all the time. And so really appreciate our clerk for joining us. Autoimmune Awareness Month is recognized every March. It's the same month as Women's History Month to draw attention to and encourage better understanding of an issue that affects 1 in 5 U.S. residents. Of the more than 50 million U.S. residents who have one or more autoimmune diseases, 75% are women. 75%. Intersectionality matters. This is not only a health issue, it's a women's issue, it's a race issue, as some of the autoimmune diseases are much more likely to appear earlier and in more devastating forms in communities of color. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Most of us have heard of autoimmune disease, but we have a lot to learn about them. The Autoimmune Association explains that autoimmune disease is a broad category of related diseases in which a person's immune system mistakenly attacks the tissues and organs it was designed to protect, your body attacking itself. While we have much left to discover about the causes and treatments of autoimmune diseases, there are several things we know for sure. We know that they are chronic and that currently none have a cure. We know that the impact of an autoimmune disease on a person's life can range from mild to life-threatening. My better half, Michelle Jawando, has lupus. In our household, we know the stress and confusion that can occur before a diagnosis when the cause of the symptoms are unknown. We also know the effort that it takes to find effective treatment once a diagnosis is established. We know the drain on our energy and the fear for our loved ones' well-being. I'm sorry. We also know that life, thank you, with autoimmune disease can be full of purpose and joy, and that people who get a diagnosis that have proper treatment, we have a pamphlet here about more about it so you know how to, can live a completely full life, not dominated by their symptoms. So those who have come up today, and many more I'm sure watching at home, have experienced this themselves or had to care for someone dealing with an autoimmune disease. They understand exactly what I'm talking about. Lupus in particular affects an estimated 1.5 million people in the U.S. and about 5 million worldwide, with 90% of them being women. Most people with lupus develop the disease between the ages of 15 and 44, and women of color are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop lupus. There are 4 forms of lupus. but multiple studies have found that BIPOC women develop lupus earlier and have worse outcomes than their white counterparts. So we must continue to build awareness about all autoimmune diseases, educate ourselves, advocate for change and research money, and rewrite the story of what it means to have an autoimmune disease. I'd like to invite just one of our speakers, Lauren Cornegay, to talk. She's the Executive Director of Endo Black, Inc. She has made it her mission to create a community of women to improve social support and health outcomes for African American women, specifically as it relates to autoimmune diseases. Lauren, thank you for joining us today and for your nonprofit and work that supports thousands of women across the DMV. And I'm also, do you want to speak? You don't have to if you don't want to. Okay, you'll say hello. And then Dr. Ashford is going to speak very briefly about her in her role as county's chief public health officer, and then we'll read the proclamation. And thank you for bearing with me.
Hello, everyone. As you stated, I am Lauren Cornegay, founder and executive director of Endo Black. I am so honored to be here to support this initiative, to support this proclamation. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to our community. Though endometriosis is not listed as an autoimmune disease, what happens when we are diagnosed with endometriosis, we are at a greater risk of having autoimmune diseases such as lupus, sickle cell anemia, and many other things. So supporting this, getting behind this, making sure that there's awareness on this, especially for the disparities and the demographics. We want to make sure that people are learning more about this so we can find cures and we can find resolutions so that others are able to live their life vicariously, and also just be able to live their life with their family members the way that we're supposed to be able to. So I just want to say thank you again for this opportunity, and we just have to continue to raise awareness and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here representing the county's Department of Health and Human Services. DHHS administers several programs that support individuals living with or affected by autoimmune disease. As you probably are aware, screening and then treatment is critically important, and the lack of insurance or your insurance status should never stand in the way of that. So Montgomery Cares is a program that provides insurance for individuals who are uninsured to allow them to be able to get screened, get access to providers, labs, x-rays, access to specialists to help either identify and or support the treatment of their autoimmune disease. Our home care program also provides personal services for individuals, adults that have underlying health conditions, such as autoimmune disease that might impede their ability to perform activities of daily living, and provides them other supports they need. We also have the respite program. So if an individual caregiver or family member is caretaking for an individual with autoimmune disease in an unpaid fashion, it provides services and some respite support to help them recover, and support to families who are taking care of their loved ones. We know that caretaking is a selfless act, and we want to make sure that our caregivers are supported. So you can receive additional information about any or all of these programs by calling us directly at 240-777-1603. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ashford. We always like a good number to hotline. I'm going to ask Councilmember Dawn Lukley to come up and maybe read the proclamation with me if she wants to share anything before that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I have been living with an autoimmune disease for 19 years. And I just want to say thank you to Councilmember Jawando, because having support at home makes all the difference in the world. And to everyone else up here representing our health providers and public health service, making sure you get treatment early is critical to the success of your outcome, so that you can stave off the progression of the diseases. And I like to think I live a pretty full life. I like to think I get quite a few things done. You know, just sharing, though, that I had that disease at that time, some people questioned why I would even bother going ahead and having children. And I think that that's a horrible thing for people to say. And so the more we talk about these things openly and honestly and share our own life's journeys, the more we reduce misunderstanding and misinformation, and the more we help people understand how to be helpful to us instead of raising barriers or looking at any of us as though we are less than. So thank you for highlighting this and raising this awareness, and take it away.
Thank you, Councilmember Lukey. Whereas Autoimmune Awareness Month, celebrated every March, is dedicated to enhancing understanding and recognition of autoimmune diseases. These diseases occur when the immune system meant to protect our bodies from harm mistakenly attacks its own tissues. Most autoimmune diseases are chronic and do not have a cure, so treatment mainly focuses on slowing disease progression. And, do you want to join me? Come on in.
Whereas over 100 autoimmune diseases have been identified, including rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, celiac, type 1 diabetes, psoriasis, and multiple sclerosis. In the United States, 1 in every 5 residents has an autoimmune disease, and 75% of those affected are women. According to the National Institutes of Health, it is the 3rd most prevalent disease category after cancer and heart disease. At least 4% of the global population is affected, and rates are increasing. And
whereas autoimmune diseases are not contagious or infectious, they can be visible or invisible and can cause a disability. Genetics and environmental factors such as pollutants, medications, diet, viral infections, and stress are linked to autoimmunity. Autoimmune disease symptoms can vary and change over time, complicating diagnoses and treatment. And
whereas advocacy, awareness, education, and research are necessary to improve the lives of the millions who live with autoimmune diseases and prevent future impacts. Montgomery County residents can better protect their health by becoming aware of the risks, signs, and treatments for autoimmune diseases. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland celebrates the month of March as Autoimmune Awareness Month. And
Sure. And be it further resolved that the county encourages all residents to do the same, presented the 12th day of March, 2024, signed by myself, Council President, on behalf of all council members. Thank you very much. We'll take a picture.
Thank you, Councilmember Giwando. Appreciate that, and thank you to Councilmember Lukey. I really appreciate both of you sharing your personal stories and your personal connection to this very important issue, and thank you to all the community stakeholders who joined us and to everybody in our community who is impacted, those directly and those loved ones indirectly. We could hear in your voice, Councilmember Giwando, that these are issues that impact not just the patient, but the family and the loved ones and the communities that those patients return home to. So thank you for that. We're now going to move on to item 2. This is a public hearing on supplemental appropriation 2462 to the FY24 operating budget, Montgomery County Government, Department of Health and Human Services, FY24 ELC Enhancing Direction Expansion Grant in the amount of $2,126,815. The source of funds is state grant. Council action is scheduled immediately following this hearing. There are no speakers scheduled for this hearing, so this public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve supplemental appropriation 2462?
so moved.
Moved by Councilmember
Second.
Lukey, seconded by Councilmember Sales. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is unanimous, and that passes. Our next item, number 3, is a public hearing on supplemental appropriation 2463 to the FY24 operating budget, Montgomery County Public Schools Supply Chain Assistance Funds in the amount of $3,343,716. Source of funds is a state grant. Council action is scheduled immediately following this hearing. There are no speakers for this hearing, so this public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve supplemental appropriation 2463?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Lukey, seconded by Councilmember Jawando. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. That special appropriation is approved. Item number 4 on our agenda is a public hearing on supplemental appropriation 2461 to the FY24 operating budget, Montgomery County Public Schools Supply Chain Assistance Funds in the amount of $1,161,003. Source of funds is a state grant. Council action is scheduled immediately following this hearing. We have no speakers scheduled for this hearing, so this public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve supplemental appropriation 2461?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Lukey, seconded by Councilmember Jawando. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. That special appropriation is now approved. Okay, we're going to move on to item 5. The council will now sit as the district council for a work session on the Tacoma Park Minor Master Plan amendment. We're going to call on Ms. Dunn, planning staff, to join us here at the table, and our chair of the planning board. Before doing that, I will just share that we are not here to take votes today. As a reminder, we'll get the consensus of the body on the items. We'll allow for opportunity for any questions or concerns. Council members can raise objections or issues, and then we will come back for straw vote and ultimately for final action, which is a roll call vote subsequent to that. So just wanted to make sure that everybody at the dais, but more importantly, those who are watching and here in person, understand the process. I'll call on Ms. Dunn when she's ready to give us an overview. Before I do that, I'm going to turn to the district council member, and then we'll turn it over to planning staff, who I know have a presentation to share, and then we'll ultimately go through the plan. So with that, let me turn it to district council member, Vice President Stewart.
Great. Thank you, Council President Friedson. So I've spoken on this a number of times, so I don't want to take up too much time today. I do want to extend my thanks again to the planning staff, our Ms. Dunn on our central staff, as well as to the members of the Planning, Housing, and Parks Commission. There were 3 work sessions that took place over the last month and a half, and I want to thank everyone at the committee for welcoming me as a guest to that committee to provide input. I also want to thank all the residents and the city of Tacoma Park, the officials there, who have been working on this minor master plan amendment for a number of years. And I'm glad that we have this before us today on the full council, and look forward to this work session and finishing it up as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you to colleagues on the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee for the detailed work as well through this plan. And with that, let me turn it over to Ms. Dunn, who can give an overview of the work and the work sessions in committee, and then turn it over to the Planning Department to walk us through the presentation and ultimately the packet.
Great. Thank you so much, and good afternoon. The council member Stewart was correct. We had 3 work sessions with the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. We covered every detail of the plan. We started with plan-wide recommendations and moved into the district-level recommendations. There are 3 districts in this plan. And in those district-level recommendations were recommendations to the land use, zoning, parks, open space, and occasionally transportation. We talked about plan implementation, we reviewed the climate action report, and we reviewed the fiscal impact statement as well. All of that is contained in the staff report you have before you today. It is lengthy. We will go through it. It will give everyone on the council an opportunity to ask a question if you have it. But before I do that, I'm just going to note in the very beginning of the staff report, because it's very important, particularly for someone who might be opening this for the first time who didn't follow the committee, noticed it on council agenda. We like to provide sort of a brief overview of why the plan was important. What is it about the area that's important to the community? And so the first couple pages of the staff report do that. They really give a brief summary of the background, the community history, equity, community engagement for this plan area. But with that, I do want to turn it over to Ms. Williams. She's the lead planner from the planning department, and she covered all of the work that was done through the planning department's efforts. And she's going to provide to the council today her work and the board's work and the planning staff's work on the plan and their efforts to engage the community.
Okay. Good afternoon. Once again, I'm Melissa Williams, and I was the project lead for the Takoma Park Minor Master Plan Amendment. And today I'm going to provide an overview of the racial equity and social justice components of the Takoma Park Minor Master Plan Amendment. So some of you have seen this already, but for the full council, this may be your first time seeing this presentation. So it's important to note that the impact of racial equity and social justice was carefully considered by the board and the staff throughout the Takoma Park Minor Master Plan Amendment process. Staff actively sought diverse voices to inform all aspects of the plan. We analyzed demographics and historical context. The community engagement and outreach efforts included a targeted strategy to reach diverse populations within the plan area and ongoing analysis to ensure that diverse voices were included to better shape plan elements, including recommendations. And so you can see here the major plan elements where this was impactful was the existing conditions analysis, our analysis of the community history and historic preservation, also in the engagement and outreach efforts, and then in the overall plan recommendations. We also crafted a community engagement update report, which is included in the plan appendix. And so if you don't have a copy of that today, you can actually take a look at the plan webpage and you will see that that's linked right at the top of the page. And so if you have interest in the demographic breakdown, we have breakdowns of participant groups on pages 6, 8, and 13 of that community engagement update report. And so there was significant community engagement and included traditional and non-traditional methods, and it resulted in more than 500 unique interactions with stakeholders. The results of these interactions inform the plan, including recommendations, particularly those related to housing and transportation. And so these are examples of the types of engagement that was utilized. So we had a canvassing effort, which was a door knocking effort that took place on the Maple Avenue and Lee Avenue properties. And those are the multifamily properties. That's kind of the densely populated area within the plan. And it's also home to residents that historically have been less likely to be involved in the engagement process. And so what was so great about that effort is that we were actually able to work with a contractor that had volunteers from people that lived within the areas and in some of those apartment buildings, and they actually assisted us with the canvassing effort by translating and introducing us to residents that wanted to be more involved in the process. And so we also did a very similar process at the Washington Adventist University. And so once again, trying to tap into those populations that are less likely to be at the table when we're having these important discussions. And that culminated in the Visioning Open House. And so that was held in the community at the Piney Branch Elementary School, and we had more than 100 people that attended that effort. We followed that up with an online questionnaire. There were also community meetings that included civics and neighborhood associations. There was also regular communication with our partner, the City of Takoma Park. So there were staff that were assigned to this project, and we provided regular updates to not just the staff, but also to their city council. And then more importantly, we also made sure that we translated our materials and we provided interpreters where we could or where needed to provide interpretive services in Spanish, French, and Amharic. And so this is an example of the recommendations. So where we ended up, and a lot of this was based on the conversations that we had with the community, is that they wanted to see better economic opportunities, and so we felt that the mixed-use zoning that we are recommending in the plan would provide some of that. They also wanted to see increased mobility options, and so we have recommendations that relate to we have recommendations that relate to trails, sidewalks, bikeways, and improved pedestrian connectivity. There was a lot of conversation about public spaces, and so we have recommendations that addressed existing public spaces and also some recommendations for improvements to new public spaces. And then finally, there was a great interest in the environment. This is Takoma Park, and we know that they are incredibly passionate about the environment. And so looking at how we could address environmental inequities in kind of the broader conversation of the environmental recommendations in the plan, there is a very kind of hefty section on the environment in the plan. And finally, there was considerable testimony about the rezoning of affordable units along Maple Avenue, specifically the potential for displacement and concerns related to compatibility. We just want to reiterate that the goals for the land use and zoning recommendations were to create pedestrian-friendly areas containing a variety of new amenities and neighborhood-serving uses. And we believe that our plan recommendations reflect that and the conversations that we had with the community. So staff crafted a robust section that included recommendations related to prioritizing the needs of existing residents by encouraging retention. We also provided for an increased diversity of unit types, and we have recommendations that relate to increasing code enforcement and reinvestment into existing units. This approach was key for the Maple Avenue district, as there are several buildings that will reach the end of their useful life within the coming years. And so I think it's also important to note that there are a lot of properties along Maple Avenue that are actually subsidized. So we're talking about units that are affordable today and will likely be affordable tomorrow because of the way that the ownership is structured. And the plan made reconnecting the community a priority. We have recommendations that encourage the safe use of roadways for all users. That includes pedestrians, cyclists, transit users, and motorists. The plan does not recommend any new roads, but it notes that all private streets and other new rights-of-way should be designed to meet the standards established by the Complete Streets Design Guide. And once again, I just want to lay out for people that aren't familiar with the area, we have the streets within the planned area are owned by the city of Takoma Park, with the exception of Carroll Avenue, and then there's a small piece of another street that's actually a county right-of-way. So it was important to note that and to understand that we had these broader conversations with the city of Takoma Park about new public rights-of-way. We also reconfirmed the bikeway recommendations of the 2018 Bicycle Master Plan, and we offer updated recommendations for bikeways along roadways where necessary. And once again, that was to align with the 2021 Complete Streets Design Guide. And then finally, we also proposed improved lighting, contiguous, unobstructed, ADA accessible sidewalks on both sides of all streets, and upgrading crosswalks at all intersections to provide improved, safe, and efficient connections. And so the goal of this was to make sure that we improve the connectivity and the efficiency of access for all residents within the planned area. And that sums up how we felt that we were able to address a lot of what we heard from the community in our plan recommendations and in the plan process. And that's the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Ms. Dunn, do you want to
Sure.
continue taking us
Yeah,
through?
thank you. That was a nice entry into the recommendations you're going to be seeing today. I'm on page 3 of the staff report. Where there is a recommendation laid out in the plan, it's bulleted. You'll see it also bulleted in the staff report. That's the way to highlight to you. That is the language that's in the plan and the recommendation that we focus on as we go through the review. And the first ones we're going to cover are for plan-wide recommendations, and it's the first section of plan-wide recommendations. There's a paragraph on land use, and then there's a recommendation related to public facilities. It's on page 3, and it states the plan recommends that wherever possible, new or expanded public facilities be co-located within private development to reduce overall development costs and provide valuable public assets near their target audiences. And the committee recommends 3-0 approval of this recommendation. If there are no questions or comments,
Yeah, I would just suggest go through the committee recommendations. If any colleague wants to make a comment or raise a concern or ask a question, just hit your button and I will call on you. But if not, we'll just continue to go through
Okay.
the various recommendations.
great, thank you. The next one was related to schools. The plan area is currently served by the Montgomery-Blair High School as part of the Down County Consortium. There's a detailed appendix on school capacity that shows that the projected levels of school capacity are sufficient to meet the potential new development via the rezoning of the plan. The only school serving the plan area that's located within the boundaries of the minor master plan amendment area is the Piney Branch Elementary School. You'll see on the top of page 4 of the staff report that the plan does make several recommendations related to what could happen on that school site, recognizing that there are basically 3 options. The school could get rebuilt on the site as it exists today, a new school site could be found within the plan area, or a new school outside the plan area could be built to service the plan area students. With any of those 3 options, the recommendations on page 4 are there to provide guidance related to that. The committee reviewed them and recommends approval of these recommendations.
Thank you. Let me just turn it quickly to Council Vice President Stewart.
Great. I just wanted to highlight for my colleagues, particularly those on the Education and Culture Committee, the recommendations regarding Piney Branch Elementary School. And we did hear testimony from Mayor Searcy, even though this is related to the CIP and not the minor master plan amendment, but just wanted to raise it here for all of you. And just thank you very much.
Heard for the second time by the chair of the Education and Culture Committee and reiterated to the other members of the committee. Thank you for lifting that up. Okay, I don't see any other comments, so Ms. Dunn, let's continue.
Great, thank you. Moving along in the staff report, it's noted that the City of Tacoma Park has its own police force, runs its own library, and runs a robust recreation program at its facility on Maple Avenue and at the Tacoma Piney Branch Local Park. The plan makes recommendations related to these facilities. There are 4 of them, and they're on the bottom of page 4. And the committee recommends approval of these recommendations in support of these facilities.
Great, let's
Okay.
continue.
We'll move to page 5, which really starts to cover the historic preservation efforts for this plan, and they were quite extensive. There's a portion of the City of Tacoma Park that is designated in the Master Plan of Historic Preservation as a historic district. The historic district lies adjacent to and outside of the plan boundary with the exception of the Carroll Avenue Bridge. You'll see at the top of page 5 there is a recommendation in the plan recommends preserving the Carroll Avenue Bridge as an element of the Tacoma Park Historic District and as an important visual feature of the Sligo Creek Stream Valley Park. In addition to that, this plan makes a recommendation for designating 3 resources into the Master Plan for Historic Preservation. The Hefner Park Community Center, its existence reflects a significant civil rights victory for African American residents of Tacoma Park who advocated for access to playgrounds and community and recreational outlets at a time when the public facilities in the city and county, including parks and community centers, were segregated. The second is the Crest House. It is historically significant for its representation of women's history, medical history, and the Seventh-day Adventist influence in Tacoma Park. And then lastly, the Sligo Seventh-day Adventist Church, as it's a striking example of streamlined modern design that sits prominently at the corners of Flower and Carroll Avenues and reflects the growth and evolution of the Seventh-day Adventist community in Tacoma Park. The committee reviewed these historic designations and they recommend approval of all of them. Okay.
Let's continue. No objections.
Thank you. In addition to these designations within the Master Plan for Historic Preservation, the plan also makes a recommendation to study Tacoma Park's historic African American neighborhoods for potential future listing in the county's Master Plan for Historic Preservation and or the National Register of Historic Places. The plan also recommends collaborating with property owners to study a Washington Adventist University National Historic District. So those aren't designations, they are basically recommendations for future study, and the committee supported those recommendations 3-0.
No objections or questions. Let's continue.
We are on page 6 of the staff report, and this section is called Reconnected. This is where there are several transportation-related proposals in the plan. The most new feature is the Green Promenade, and it connects through the length of the plan from Tacoma Park Community Center along Maple Avenue to the Washington Adventist campus and Flower Avenue. The Green Promenade is envisioned, as they term it, a kit of parts. It will be constructed over time and is envisioned as an improvement along the right-of-way of Maple Avenue and Maple Woods Avenue. And with it, there are 4 gateways that are proposed. Those are on the bottom half of page 6. The committee recommends approval of the Green Promenade and the proposed gateways with only a minor modification. This came through public testimony, and it is that the location of the Flower Avenue gateway be at Flower Avenue and Erie Avenue rather than at Flower and Maplewood.
No objections or comments?
Okay.
Let's continue.
The plan also makes recommendations for 4 bikeway improvements, and these are listed on the top of page 7 of the staff report. The plan supports the City of Tacoma Park's Maple Avenue connectivity project, and again recommends these 4 improvements as well, and the committee supported those improvements.
No objections or questions. Let's continue.
Okay. The next is a pedestrian network. Again, the plan recommends a series of improvements that would complete a full ADA sidewalk network through the plan area. And to make that possible, the 3 recommendations for pedestrian connectivity are listed there in the middle of page 7, and the committee supported them 3-0.
No questions or objections. Let's continue.
As was noted by planning staff, there are no new roads recommended in this plan area, but the plan does make recommendations for the roadway network in the area as related to the Complete Streets Design Guidelines. Those are all listed for the council, bottom of page 7. They were reviewed with the committee, who supported them 3-0.
No objections or questions. Let's continue.
Okay. There are only one significant transit recommendation in the plan. You'll see that at the top of page 8. And the plan recommends that it focus on upgrading the remaining unfurnished bus stops by making them ADA compliant and adding shelters and seating. The committee approved this one recommendation for transit unanimously. And next is the section on the policy area level transportation analysis. You can see the language there in the middle of page 8. But the bottom line was that the transportation facilities recommended in the plan are adequate to serve the plan's recommended increases in development, according to analysis done pursuant to the 2024 Growth and Infrastructure Policy.
No objections or questions, so let's continue.
And next, as happens in most master plans, the plan sets a non-auto driver mode share goal. For this plan, it's 48% for residential and commercial development, and this is consistent with the 48% NADMS build-out goal for Tacoma Park, as also set in the Growth and Infrastructure Policy.
No objections or questions, let's continue.
The next section we have is called Resilience, and this is where we're going to really focus in on the environment recommendations in the plan. Again, we're still in the plan-wide recommendations section. We haven't gotten to the districts. You turn to page 9 of the staff report. There's a section that is titled Extreme Heat and Tree Canopy. And the overall tree canopy cover for the plan area is 43%, while developed properties overall have a lower tree canopy of only 26%. And the city has an established goal of 60% tree canopy coverage throughout the entire city of Tacoma Park. With this in mind, the plan makes several recommendations, and those are listed all through the middle of page 9. The committee did review these and unanimously recommend approval of the environmental recommendations.
No questions or objections, let's continue.
The next section is titled Carbon Sequestration, which is the process of capturing and storing atmospheric carbon dioxide. To increase carbon sequestration capacity and its associated benefits, the plan recommends, it looks like 5 recommendations that are listed at the top of page 10. Again, these were reviewed by the committee and approved 3-0.
No questions or objections.
Okay. The next section is water quality and storm water, and recognizing that stormwater is managed by the City of Tacoma Park in this area, the plan recommends supporting the city's stormwater management's effort through the following strategies. So it puts forward these recommendations in support of the City of Tacoma Park and improved stormwater management. The committee reviewed these and approved them 3-0.
I don't see any questions or objections. Let's continue.
Great. The next section is titled Building and Energy. It is to improve energy efficiency, reduce energy demand, increase on-site energy production, decrease embodied carbon emissions, all in an effort to meet the city and the county's net zero carbon emission goals by 2035. The plan recommends 4 recommendations in support of these efforts. Again, the committee reviewed these and supported them 3-0.
Don't see any questions or objections. Let's continue.
The next section is titled Food Security, and it is to help increase the capacity to produce sustainable, healthy foods through increased opportunities for either community gardening, food forests, and urban agriculture. The plan makes 2 recommendations. The committee has 1 revision to the first recommendation, and you'll see that revised language there 2/3 of the way down page 11, which is to support commercial food kitchens, food processing, and rooftop farms in the plant throughout the plant area. That's the change.
No objections or questions. Let's continue.
And the next section is environmental equity. The plan does make a recommendation related to equity in this section. The plan recommends public and private investment in enhanced access to parks, open space, community gardens, and local healthy food production. There's a second recommendation that the plan recommends the future departmental planning efforts continue to expand the informational tools available to identify and address local environmental inequities. And the committee accepted both of these recommendations 3-0.
No questions or objections. Let's continue.
Great. We are now on housing. In the plan, it's on pages 76 through 80. We are on page 12 of the staff report. The plan area currently has a little over 1,300 housing units, and about 550 of these are subsidized units and have rents affordable to households with incomes between 30% and 80% of the area median income. Many of the rental properties in the city were built more than 50 years ago, and as Ms. Williams mentioned, many will likely require some level of reinvestment to ensure quality, safe, and affordable housing in the future. The plan has several sections related to housing where recommendations are made. The first one we'll cover is housing production. And you'll see there are 3 bulleted recommendations on page 12. The council heard testimony both in opposition to and in support of the recommendation regarding Takoma Park's rent stabilization policy, which is the 3rd recommendation under this section. While the recommendation referring to the city's rent policy does not require action by the city, the mayor did testify in opposition to it. Attached to the staff report packet on pages 1 through 25 is the City of Takoma Park's annual housing report, and on page 26 is comparison of the city's rent stabilization policy to that of the county's. The committee considered the following modified version of the planning board's recommendation. So you'll see at the top of page 13 is a modified version of that 3rd recommendation, which reads the City of Takoma Park should consider modifications to its rent stabilization policy to ensure the policy does not deter new investment while continuing to safeguard tenants from onerous rent increases. The committee recommended 2-1, with Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez dissenting, deleting this recommendation from the plan.
I don't see any objections or comments or questions, so let's continue.
Okay. The next section we have is affordable housing production. You will see numerous recommendations related to that. The council received testimony from Rob Goldman of Montgomery Housing Partnership in support of increasing the MPDU requirement on new development from 12.5% to 15%. And the committee recommends 3-0 of approving increasing this minimum MPDU requirement to 15%.
Don't see any comments, questions, or objections, so let's continue.
Okay. The next section is preservation of housing and affordability. See numerous recommendations related to this. The council heard testimony from several speakers concerned with the potential loss of affordable housing on Maple Avenue District. You also received a letter from the county executive noting this concern as well. In response to these concerns, which is not unusual, recent master plans have started to evaluate and include recommendations related to no net loss of affordable housing. This plan is no different, and the last 4 recommendations listed above on the top of page 13 are directed at achieving redevelopment without a loss of affordable units. It's important to clarify, however, whether to achieve no net loss or a strict no net loss requirement is to be applied to every property that seeks to redevelop, or should it be applied plan-wide. The staff has provided just a brief paragraph trying to illustrate if it is to apply to each property, what that might mean for some of the properties in the plan area, which would actually mean a much greater FAR being given to that property if it's to achieve no net loss and not have a burden that is inordinate to a private property owner, say 40% burden of NPDU requirement versus the 15 that's being required plan-wide. So with that, basically the result is that a strict property-by-property requirement of no net loss does not seem plausible given the amount of zoning that is being provided in the plan, with the maximum densities of 2.5. However, given there are multiple master plan recommendations that seek to achieve no net loss, and looking plan-wide, the plan zoning does support a no net loss in affordable units on a plan-wide basis. Given that, the committee recommends 3-0 that the section be modified as follows, which is really just a reordering of the text and including the 5th bullet that you'll see down there, to preserve existing naturally occurring and regulated affordable housing where practicable, striving for no net loss of affordable housing in the event of redevelopment.
I don't see any questions, comments, or objections. So let's
Great.
continue.
Okay. Within this last section in the plan-wide recommendations, there's a lengthy section on parks, trails, and open space. It provides a lot of information. It doesn't give specific detailed recommendations at this point, and it holds off, and these are provided in the district sections. So the information is provided here for you, but there's nothing really related to a recommendation. We'll turn now to the district recommendations. So this is at the top of page 17. You'll see there's a map that shows you the 3 districts that are in the plan area: the Municipal District, the Maple Avenue District, and the Flower Avenue District. The plan makes several recommendations for zoning and land use related to Municipal District. Those are located on pages 18 of the staff report. The council heard testimony regarding the intensity of development being recommended in the plan, with some speakers comparing it to downtown Silver Spring. Staff looked at the recently approved zoning in the downtown Silver Spring and adjacent communities plan. The core of the downtown area in Silver Spring, between Fenton Street and East-West Highway, the densities range from 3 FAR to 8 FAR. The maximum density being proposed in the Tacoma plan is 2.5. Heights in the core of downtown Silver Spring range from 130 feet to 300 feet. However, in the Fenton Village area of the Silver Spring plan, the heights range from 70 to 130 feet. This plan recommends a height of 150 feet for the Town Hall property and the Piney Branch Elementary School site. The committee recommends limiting the height to 120 feet for sites 1 and 2, that being the Town Hall site and the school board school site. This would still allow for significant redevelopment potential with structured parking, but would also provide a slight transition to the taller recommended heights that will occur along Maple Avenue, in the Maple Avenue District. The committee recommends 3-0 approval of the zoning recommendations that are shown in the table on the middle of page 19.
No objections, comments, so let's continue.
Okay. For the bottom of page 19, you'll see that there are recommendations related to parks and open space, specifically related to Tacoma Piney Branch Local Park, implementation of the Green Promenade and the Municipal Gateway, and the committee supported these recommendations.
No comments or objections, let's continue.
We're now moving to the Maple Avenue District. The Maple Avenue District is the primary residential center of the plan area, and it's characterized by mid and high-rise residential buildings with several large surface parking lots. There are also trees and sidewalks that line it. It's quite wide in some places, and there is one small commercial area that exists within this district. There's a map of it on the page 20 of the staff report, and you'll see that following that, the plan makes recommendations for land use, or for zoning and land use, that go well onto page 21 of the staff report. There's one technical correction. Site or map numbers 9 and 12 will be separated into blocks A and B, as the current zoning for each of these numbered blocks contains both R10 and R20 zoning. It's just a technical change you'll see in the table. With that, on page 22, we note that the letter submitted by the county executive has a recommendation for height of only 50 feet along Lee Avenue. These are sites 10 and 12 to maintain the garden apartment character and lower MPDU rents. In addition to the heights along Lee Avenue, the committee did discuss the maximum heights for properties at sites or map numbers 8, 9, and 11. Sites 8 and 9 are directly across Maple Avenue from the Town Hall and the elementary school properties where the committee had recommended the height of 120 feet. For sites 8, 9, and 11, they also abut either single-family houses or the multifamily buildings being recommended for 65 feet in height. So in line with the committee's recommended height for the Town Hall and elementary school sites, the committee recommends unanimously limiting the height for sites 8, 9, and 11 to 120 feet. As for the properties along Lee Avenue, given the height compatibility features of the CRT zone, the committee did not recommend further lowering the height to 50 feet. The committee did, however, recommend a slight revision to the rationale for the proposed rezonings for sites 10 and 12, as you can see there at the bottom of page 22. And with that, the committee recommends approval of the zoning recommendations for Maple Avenue with the amendments noted just now and as shown in the table on page 23, although there's one error in that page onto page 23. Thank you, Ms. Williams, for showing me that this morning. For map number 19, it shows a change in height to 120. That height is remaining at 150 for the site 19.
I don't see any objections or questions or comments, so let's continue.
Great. The next, we have several parks and open space recommendations. As we were reviewing this with the committee, looking at the planning board draft, we noted there were some repetition in the language that was in the planning board draft. The Parks Department went through and revised that to make sure it was tighter, did not change any substance to it. That's what's being shown to you on pages 23 and 24 of the plan. The committee looked at that in follow-up and approved it unanimously.
Don't see any objections or comments. Let's continue.
Great. We're on Flower Avenue District now. The Flower Avenue District is home to the Washington Adventist University, the former Washington Adventist Hospital, and the Sligo Seventh-day Adventist Church. There is a small retail center there, the Erie Center Retail Cluster, and there are some single-family and multi-unit residential properties. There's a map that zone focuses in more on it. It's on page 25 of the staff report. And here the plan makes several recommendations related to zoning and land use, particularly because Site 23, being the former Washington Adventist Hospital site, is primed for redevelopment. So you'll see all those recommendations on the bottom of page 25, all of page 26, and the top half of page 27 of the staff report. We'll cover any changes to these by site number. And the first one's for Site 23. This is the site of the former Washington Adventist Hospital. And the council received testimony from several residents expressing support for the redevelopment of this property. In addition, the council received testimony from Mr. Klein, who's the Executive Director of Corporate Real Estate for Washington Adventist Healthcare, and Dr. Spence, President of Washington Adventist University, requesting consideration of a couple edits to a handful of the recommendations. And the council also received, in its letter from the county executive, a suggested change in zoning with respect to this site. So under the recommendation for Site 23, sub-bullets 3 and 4 include text to include a primary central public open space. The testimony from Mr. Klein and Dr. Spence included a concern with this reference to public space. As you'll see a little farther down, to address this, the committee talked about this twice, once in the second committee session and then again as a follow-up, and has recommended this change that you'll see on the bottom of page 27, although I do have to make one correction to it. It is to read, include a primary central open space of at least a half an acre that is open to Flower Avenue and provides reasonable access. It would also strike to existing and future residents and replacing that with to the community. The committee felt and planning staff felt that just seemed to better represent who they were concerned with here. And then the rest of it reads as is written in the planning board draft.
Okay, any objections to that change, both the committee change and the friendly suggestion by staff? Okay, without objection, that works.
Great, thank you. The next is on page 28 of the staff report. It was again suggested in the correspondence from the stakeholders to change language related to the public right-of-way along Carroll Avenue, and you'll see that modified text at the top of page 28. So after consultation with planning staff, the committee recommends approval of the changes at the top of page 28.
No objections or comments. Let's continue.
And then lastly, with respect to this site, The county executive had recommended that it be zoned to the CRT zone with a maximum height of 70 feet. And just want to point out that the plan already recognizes the importance of neighborhood compatibility, and the plan states that the maximum building height on the Adventist site should transition to a maximum height for buildings fronting Flower Avenue of 70 feet, for a horizontal distance of 20 feet, and along Maplewood Avenue, the maximum building height should conform to the compatibility requirements of the zoning ordinance. So there's a lot of protection already in the plan and in the zoning ordinance along this property. In addition, the choice for CR zoning really is to support public benefits for the community. Under the CR zone, with a development up to 1.5 FAR, it would need to satisfy 50 public benefit points. If this were to change to CRT zoning, it would only have to satisfy 25 public benefit points. In addition to that, the standard method threshold under these two zones is different. It is likely under CRT zoning, which has a standard method up to a 1 FAR, that the property could potentially come in with no public benefits at all and not have to go through the optional method. So the committee recommends approval of the planning board's proposed zoning for Site 23.
Don't see any objections, comments, or questions. Let's continue.
Okay. The next are Sites 30 and 33. Under the recommended zoning for these, planning staff had recommended currently zoned CRT, to modify it to CRN, really thinking about how potential redevelopment might affect a small property owner. They wanted to ensure that these property owners, if they wanted to redevelop, could come in under standard method. But you can still come in under standard method up to a 1 FAR and CRT. And the change you would get by doing this to CRN would actually reduce some of the uses allowed, and one being a dry cleaner. There's a dry cleaner on one of these sites. This is just a modest change to what the planning board recommended. It would be to retain the CRT zoning for these properties.
Don't see any objections or comments. Let's continue.
And so with that, the committee recommends 3-0 approval of the zoning recommendations in the Flower Avenue district as shown in the table that's on page 29 of the staff report. Following that, we have parks and open space recommendations. The only change to this is that, again, the stakeholders to the university site have requested the addition of a 4th bullet, which would read, these gateways do not detract or cause confusion from identifying the Washington Adventist University. And the committee supported this recommendation being added.
Don't see any objections or comments. Let's continue.
Okay. The next section is design with respect to this Flower Avenue district, and there are multiple bullets related to how things should be treated in redevelopment, and the committee recommended unanimously approval of these design recommendations.
No objections. Let's continue.
We're now on implementation, so these are recommendations related to how the zoning gets implemented in the plan. The first one is that the plan recommends adding dormitory as a limited use in the CR and CRT zones, subject to plan approval. That would require a ZTA in the future. Currently, dormitories are only allowed in the Life Science Center zone. The second recommendation is to delete what we see is now obsolete overlay zones for the plan area, the community serving retail overlay, and the commercial revitalization overlay. The recommended CR zoning will accommodate the same goals as these overlays attempted to do on the older zoning. And then the next being implementation related to public benefits. The optional method of development under CR requires public benefits in return for increased density above the standard. And the plan prioritizes the handful of public benefits that it wants to prioritize as development comes forward. One is for major public facilities. You can see the 2 sub-bullets there, which would involve co-location of public or community service uses, support for Brashears Run restoration. There is a prioritization for connectivity and mobility related to advanced dedication, so the improvements along Carroll Avenue take a priority and are very important for the area, and streetscape improvements, which could result in that green promenade. It also supports and makes priority diversity of uses and activities, which would include a dwelling unit mix, trying to get 2- and 3-bedroom apartments in redevelopment so that families can live in the multifamily buildings, and additional MPDUs. It also has a priority for energy conservation and generation, habitat preservation and restoration, and tree canopy. And then lastly, building reuse. All of those are priorities that the board must consider in any application for redevelopment in this district. With respect to that, there's also, following it, there's on-site public open space recommendation and implementation, and then accessory uses in the CR zone recommendation. As noted earlier, there was a modification to a recommendation related to the food security section, that would actually make us just simply delete this last implementation recommendation. It's not needed to change the zoning. There was testimony received with respect to the public benefits section here, on the county executive recommended that the plan require the provision of MPDUs above the minimum as the top public benefit. Providing MPDUs above the minimum is a priority. I'll just note that we just went through. There's about 9 that are priority public benefits. MPDUs above the minimum is one of those. But it's along with 8 other priority public benefits, including a major public facility, as I said, advanced education, the green promenade, dwelling unit mix, etc. Given the importance of these public benefits in achieving the vision of the plan and recognizing the committee's recommendation to increase the minimum MPDU requirement from 12.5% to 15%, the committee recommends 3-0, retaining the proposed list of priority public benefits. Again, noting that the provision of MPDUs is one of the top public benefits as proposed by the Planning Board.
Don't see any objections or comments. Let's continue.
The plan makes several implementation recommendations related to connectivity improvements. You will see those just starting at the bottom of page 31. It involves the green promenade, sidewalk improvements, bicycle infrastructure, etc. The committee again reviewed these and recommends approval of these improvements 3-0.
Don't see any objections or questions. Let's continue.
In addition to that, the committee reviewed the list of capital improvements that are associated with this plan. It followed that with a review and discussion of the climate assessment report that also came along with the plan and is required. And lastly, it covered the fiscal impact statement that was provided by OMB. OMB estimates the cost of county board and capital improvements in the planning board draft to be approximately $10 million over the proposed life of the plan. Approximately $8.5 million of which are parks related. And as far as master plan goes, it's important to note this fiscal impact is well below that of other master plans approved since 2016, which have ranged from $707 million to $60 million in fiscal impact. And with that, we've covered everything in the plan and that was covered by the committee.
Okay, talk about efficiency. Appreciate it. Well, thank you for going through the packet. Are there any questions or comments from colleagues? I see Councilmember Jawando. Let me turn it to him.
Thank you. I appreciate council staff and planning, and obviously we did this in the PHP committee, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things, just lift up, that were priorities for me and I think are important improvements to what we received from planning, which was a good document that did a lot of work. We increased the NPDU requirement. It was 12.5%. One of the testimony that we heard was that it was too low, and there's concern about displacement, which I share anytime we do upzoning. This will not solve every concern, but it's a step in a very positive direction and consistent with action we've taken on other master plans to require 15% plan-wide. I appreciate Rob Goldman and others for being in suggesting that, and I'm glad that was a 3-0. We removed the language, which this was a 2-1, but I was on the 2, to say that Tacoma Park needs to change or update its rent stabilization law. We heard testimony from the mayor and from other council members there, and I think that was appropriate to remove that, and the city council and the city of Tacoma Park will take care of their own rent stabilization law. Which I will remind folks we used a lot of that to base our law on, and not all of it, but a lot of it. And then the final thing I wanted to raise is the no net loss definition. This is something that has been important in a number of plans. I think the first plan that Council President and I worked on the previous FED committee, this concept that if you are going to upzone and allow for more housing, that you should not lose the affordable or existing affordable housing that's there. I will acknowledge, and one of the reasons we pressed in committee on this is that if you take the way we decided to do it was on the aggregate of the plan. Obviously, these plans are built out over time. Not every project comes before the planning board all at once, right? It doesn't happen that way. In fact, we have the reverse problem sometimes where people get approvals and sit on them for too long. It's something we need to work on as well. But that over the course of the plan, there should be no net loss. Now, for buildings we dug into this and included in the appendix a definition of how the planning board will get to and analyze no net loss within individual applications. This is the first time I think we've done that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Dunn, but articulate, okay, you see nodding, where we've gone to the extra lengths to say this is what no net loss means. I think it's a much stronger definition than we've done in the past. I also just want to say to the planning department and planning board, and we have the chair here and the staff, that for properties that are very large, like the ones in Essex House and others on Maple Avenue, if a project comes before you to redevelop those properties under this new authority that you're going to be given, and it's not no net loss in those very large projects, I would think that under your definition, the way I read it, that project would not be approved. Mr. Harris gave me a thumbs up. We've heard very impassioned testimony from the public. In some cases where there's smaller buildings or it can be hard to achieve. We had a couple in previous plans where just because of the land use or how it's designed that you can't achieve it. But for these big projects where a lot of, I was just texting with one of my former staff members who's still with the council. A couple years ago, we were part of the team that knocked doors. The outreach that was described, I was at the door. In Essex House and others for over 2 days with everyday canvassing, where we heard directly from folks about what they wanted to see, and they want to see their building maintained better. They want to see the elevators working. They want to see less rodents and mice and roaches and other things that in deferred maintenance. They want to see that, but they also want to stay in their community, and so I just want to, I'm emphasizing this because I think any project that came before the planning board that for one of these big apartments where most of these immigrant communities of color are living affordably, and it did not have a no net loss as part of the build out of that project, under this definition, I wouldn't expect to see that approved. Mr. Harris, you gave me a thumbs up, but I'm going to ask you to just comment on that.
I would agree, and we always said that the parcels that you'd have the best potential is the larger ones. So yes, you will meet this requirement in all the larger projects or exceed in the larger projects that come up.
Meet or exceed, right. And it's also a public benefit to exceed that. That's a part of the calculation. So I just want to give the public, you're hearing that from the planning director. I would have not have supported this if there was not a commitment in these large projects that house our communities of color that have affordable housing, unless they could all have the opportunity to return. And we're going to bring them new neighbors in a nicer building. And this is going to happen over time. So I just want to point all that out. Nothing's perfect, but I think this is a step in the right direction. So I just wanted to give voice to that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Let me turn it to our other committee member, Natalie Fana-Gonzalez.
I want to echo what Councilmember Will Jawando mentioned, but also to emphasize this is the second plan that we see after Thrive 2050. And as a person who worked on Thrive 2050 when I was on the planning board, it gives me joy to see this moving forward. This entire plan speaks about racial justice and equity. The entire document, more than any other sector plan that I have worked on, and that's something for Montgomery County to feel proud of. This is about improving quality of life and also embracing environmental justice. That's another thing that this plan does, especially because it has Sligo Creek right in the middle of the community. I also want to emphasize and support the comments from Council Vice President Stewart about Piney Branch Elementary School. One of my kids go there actually right now, and I know for a fact that school needs improvement. And I know for folks who haven't gone through this type of process, it's hard to even believe that this is actually a good thing. But as somebody who has worked on this, as a planner, I would say, from the planning board and now as a council member, I know that we're doing the right thing, especially protecting low-income communities who have the right to have amenities that are high class. That should not be limited to Bethesda, to other parts of the county. That should be in every single part of this county, and that's what we're doing here in Takoma Park. So with that, I look forward to one day, pretty soon, vote on this officially on this sector plan. I voted on it as a PHP member, but I cannot wait to do it as a member of the entire council. Thank you.
Council Vice President Stewart.
Thank you. I'll be quick because I just want to say thank you again to the PHP committee and particularly to Councilmember Jawando. I think your summary of the work that went on in committee was really important because I think for folks, even though Ms. Dunn, you did a fantastic job walking through the packet, there was a lot of work that, and very thoughtful, intentional work that happened in the PHP committee in collaboration with the planning board chair and the planning department staff, and I think we made improvements and highlighted some of the very important pieces of this minor master plan amendment. And I just want to say thank you for getting that on the record and for the verbal confirmation from our planning chair. And again, just thank Ms. Dunn and the entire team for having worked on this.
Great. Okay. I don't see any other comments. Appreciate the work. Thank you very much to the planning department, the planning board, to council staff as she raced through that packet and walked through each and every one of the detailed recommendations and discussions. You know, there was tremendous amount of work in committee and more importantly among staff. I really appreciate there were several items that were refined during the committee process, which is how this is supposed to work, and I think we ultimately have gotten to a good place. So look forward to moving this forward towards a formal vote, which will be subsequent to this conversation. But with that, thank you for joining us, and we're ready to move on to our next item. So our next item on our agenda is actually several agenda items that are included as part of the Council's work session on the FY25 to 30 Capital Improvements Program. The County Executive transmitted the CIP budget to the Council on January 16th, and the Council committees have been hard at work to review the projects and project amendments submitted. The Council will be reviewing and taking preliminary straw votes on the committee recommendations to date. As colleagues know, ultimately the CIP recommendations across departments and agencies will need to be reconciled within spending affordability guidelines and in conjunction with the operating budget. It is a puzzle. We have to put all the pieces together. These are preliminary votes and preliminary straw votes to understand the will of the body as those discussions continue and take place. So I just wanted to give the appropriate context as we begin this conversation. The first item to discuss is agenda item 6, the Capital Improvements Program under General Government, Economic Development. Chair Fanny Gonzalez, would you please share the recommendation from the Economic Development Committee's review of this CIP?
My pleasure. So we have 5 projects, and 3 of them are new. I'm going to go quickly by each project, and I see of Stafford, Valal, go on and take your breath. I'm just going to kick it off. I'm going to start with the new projects and then go into the ongoing projects. All of them received approval from the committee, unanimous approval for the committee, by the committee. So the first one is the Glenmont Redevelopment Program for $452,000. This particular property is key just because it belongs to the Maryland Department of Transportation, and we want to acquire that particular site. It has 2 functions. One will be as we redevelop the police station on Randolph Road. It will serve as a site for staging for the construction. So that's one. And 2, this is something that I mentioned during committee, and I'll say here, I'm working with this particular developer on the Glenmont Shopping Center. You're going to hear more about it in the summertime. But this particular property is key as we put together several parcels in that particular shopping center. So that's one. Should I just mention them all? Or do you want me to pause?
You can mention it now.
Okay, perfect. So that's one. The second, that's Glenmont. The second one, it's on the Henry Jackson Foundation in Bethesda. This is another exciting project. It basically will support the build out of a mini wet lab in Bethesda, so the funding is for that. Very self-explanatory. So that's the second one. The third one is the Wheaton M. Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission headquarters retail space. As you all know, that retail space is completely empty. There are no walls, no ceiling, there's nothing. This is something that the community has been asking for, because once the building was built, there was a commitment by the county to ensure that this will be an active place where we'll bring people together. And I know Councilmember Glass has a couple comments about this. Do you want to mention your comment now?
You finished your report?
No, we're not, but...
So why don't you go
Okay,
finish your report, and then I'll yield to Councilmember Glass.
So that's $4 million to complete that, to fix that space and attract new tenants. Then regarding the ongoing projects coming up, we have another exciting one. This is North Bethesda Metro Station Area Redevelopment Infrastructure. This is an ongoing $16 million project that supports site work for the unimproved W. Wamata owned property. Very key to ensure that we complete the vision of North Bethesda, including Metro. So and then the last one that we have on the packet is the White Oak Science Gateway Redevelopment Project. Now, this one I will emphasize that as a committee we agreed on the project, but we have some concerns with the schedule of a particular road. Today the committee received an email from the attorney for the White Oak Science Gateway Project giving us his schedule. So what I just suggest is, as a committee agreed on the project, I'm going to suggest for council staff to work with the developer, and as part of the reconciliation, come back to us with an update. But he did provide what we asked during committee session, which is a great thing. This is another very important project for the county, especially for that side of the county, and that's all I have to say.
Just to confirm, since these are preliminary straw votes, you're just offering some guidance to staff, but not to hold up on taking a position on this.
Yeah, no, we agree with the project. We just had issues with the schedule, and that's what the attorney gave us today.
Yeah,
So.
and there's time for staff to follow up on that. Okay,
Exactly.
thank you. Turning it to Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you to the Economic Development Committee Chair. So during the committee session, I did have some questions about the $4 million for the repurposing or building out of the park and planning building in downtown Wheaton, the marquee space that it is and what it is meant to be. Part of this conversation we're having now, we are expecting, Mr. Ali, do you want to tee up the conversation, because we are running ahead of schedule? Yes, which is a great thing. But some of our attendees are not yet here, and I think there's really important conversations we need to have, and I'll share with colleagues. The conversation I had at the committee was, before we make a commitment for $4 million for this space, I have concerns about the occupancy of this space and want to see what the return to work schedules are for the Parks Department, the Planning Department, and other county agencies that are housed in that facility. Because if we're making the $4 million investment and we have a tenant that ends up going in there, we want to set them up for success. And that is predicated on people being in that building and being in that general area. So I don't know, Mr. President, how you want to proceed with us being 55 minutes ahead of schedule.
I don't see any other colleagues, so we can turn it over to council staff, and if you think that we don't have the appropriate people here to discuss this, then we can hold off, or we can continue through the conversation.
Yeah, the guests are unfortunately not here yet, and I don't have the data that they were going to present. They were going to bring it with them to mention here and sort of discuss their policies and the amount of people that they have in the office on any given day. So if you want to table that discussion, or if I can provide that in writing to raise again at another date, just let me know what works.
All right, well, why don't we take up everything besides that item, unless there are any concerns with that. If we have time after and they do arrive and it's at an appropriate time in the meeting, we can bring that agenda item back up. If not, we will take it up at a later date.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so, yeah, please, Councilman Malcolm.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment on the White Oak project. I'm really excited about this. This project has been in limbo for a very long time, and I think that we should just take a moment to say what a great thing this is, and appreciate getting the information that we asked for today. Perfect timing. So I feel so happy this project is going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman May.
I love this council. Took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. Thank you so much to the committee for the work on the White Oak Science Gateway redevelopment project, and for the council for the support as we've been moving through this. We're really excited about it. This is a huge moment, huge project for the county, and obviously a huge moment and a huge project for East County especially. And I'll keep saying that this has really been fantastic to have it be such teamwork with the full council on getting all of these projects moving and going and funded, and appreciate the flexibility by the committee to give time to our developers to work out some of the details with DGS and with council staff, and to them being forthcoming and on the ball, getting the information over. It's very exciting to look through the info and say, oh, that's when the curbs are going in. Okay, so very exciting. Thank you to the committee, and I yield.
Okay, Councilmember Albornoz.
Thanks. I'll just be brief. So I'm channeling former Councilmember Navarro on this, because she talked about this issue for 4 consecutive years on this body, understandably expressing great frustration that we had not been able to activate that retail space, and especially concerned about the message that's sent to the broader Wheaton community. And so I completely agree that we need to have a conversation about the staffing of that particular building, and more broadly staffing in general. But I think this is going to be a really important investment that will help unlock a lot of other potential retail in and around that region.
Thank you. Okay, since this is, it's a straw vote, but we should make a motion. I don't think the appropriate people are here from the agency, which I think is what was requested. Okay, do we want to make a motion to approve everything besides the one item? And you can second it, and then we can take up the rest at a later date.
Are there any other questions on Wheaton? Because I'm okay with moving forward with Wheaton right now. I understand the concern that Councilmember Glass mentioned, and which I also had the same concern, and I have brought it up too, in terms of staffing, but I also don't want to hold up this project because of that. So I will echo what Councilmember Albornoz said. So I want to know how other people feel.
I'm comfortable moving forward as well. We can see where the will of the body is.
You guys okay with moving the whole packet? Okay, perfect. Is that?
Okay, Councilmember Glass, you can follow up with questions, and you'll have them before we make final decisions. I'm going to yield to you.
Procedurally, they're on their way, right? They were invited. We're just running ahead of time. And so all I'm asking is we circle back at the end, or maybe in between the next 2 packets, whenever it might be. Because again, I very much appreciate the district council member and Councilmember Albornoz, and I too want this. And we have to make sure it is set up for success. That's the bottom line.
Okay, we're not taking final action today. Understand the point that you're making. You can make a motion if you'd like to be deferential to Councilmember Glass. It's your decision. You're the chair. You can move forward with the full committee recommendation if you prefer, or you can ask for approval for the items excluding that item.
Can we wait for can we take the other items and then come back to this one today?
As I've already said, if we have time and it works in the timing of the meeting and they're here, we will take it up later on in this meeting. But if not, we'll bring it back at a later date.
Okay, fine. So I move to approve all the items, but the Wheaton one, and we'll take that one hopefully at the end of this meeting today.
Okay. There's a second. Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilmember Glass. All in favor? That is unanimous. If the guests are here and able to respond, we'll take that up separately later on in the meeting. And let's move on with our next items. I believe next item on the agenda is item number 7, Capital Improvements Program for Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Let me call up Mr. Mia. The committee concurred with the executive's recommendation for all projects in the community development and housing CIP categories, with the exception of 2 projects, the Affordable Housing Acquisition and Preservation AHAP CIP and the new Revitalization for Troubled and Distressed Common Ownership Communities CIP. The committee recommends deferring the review of these 2 projects until the operating budget is released. Both deferred projects include significant current revenue funding and/or staffing impacts that require review of DHCA and the Housing Initiative Fund operating budgets in order to inform the committee's recommendations more fully. I'll just note this is how we have traditionally handled these particular items in previous years, and so stayed consistent with that effort, although there was a significant conversation in the committee to discuss these particular items, both the continuation of the one project, the AHAP project, and the new item related to common ownership communities, and there was general support from the committee for these items. With that, let me turn it over to Mr. Mia if you have anything to add.
Nothing else to add.
Okay. Community Development CIP category is recommended for a total 6-year funding of $4.3 million, reduction of $498,000, or 10% from the previously approved amended FY23 to 28 funding level of $4.8 million. Unless there are any questions, all in favor of accepting the committee recommendation? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to item number 8. Item number 8 is the Housing Opportunities Commission Capital Improvements Program. The committee also approved all of the projects here. And let me turn it over to Mr. Ambiter.
Thank you, Council President Friedson. As you mentioned, the committee did recommend approval of all of the projects in the CIP for the recommended CIP for the Housing Opportunities Commission. This comprises a total of $7.5 million, which represents a $2.73 million or 26.7% decrease from the approved amended 23 to 28 CIP. Again, all of those votes were unanimous, so I'm happy to turn it over to Mr. Goetzinger from Housing Opportunities Commission if you'd like to add any additional comments.
Any additional comments?
Not a whole lot. Just want to say appreciate all of the partnership and the hard work between the county and HOC. We couldn't do what we do without all of your help. Really appreciate it, and I'm going to keep my message short because you guys are zooming through it today.
Take yes for an answer. We appreciate it. A model of efficiency here at the County Council today. I'll just note Housing Opportunities Commission leadership was recently at the White House talking about how to replicate the Housing Production Fund and some of the work that we're doing here at the local level with the leadership and funding provided by the County Council to the Housing Opportunities Commission, which has been highlighted by the New York Times, by Vox, by other places on how state and local governments can address these issues. I just want to recognize that and lift that up. I don't want to overstate that. We're going through this quickly, but it's very important, and it's being recognized, and actually the White House and the Biden administration are looking to help and support local governments to do what we're doing here to replicate that in other jurisdictions around the country. So I think we should take that as a source of pride on some of the work that we're doing in housing, and thank you to our public housing agency for the innovative approaches that they are taking and some of the creative ways that we are financing housing here at the local level and creating mixed income communities. So thank you for that. I don't see any comments or questions. With that, all in favor of item number 8 as approved by the committee, that is unanimous. And we are going to move on to item number 9. Appreciate it. And let me turn it over to the Chair of the Public Safety Committee to walk us through the Police Department CIP.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As we all know, public safety is only 3.3% of our capital budget, but of course it is extremely important to each and one of us, every one of us every day, and especially for our 1,100 police officers who we truly have an obligation to give them the needed resources they need. There's 3 projects that we discussed. They were unanimous. The 6 Districts Police Station that's going to serve the residents of Montgomery Village and Gaithersburg, and it's expected to be completed in early FY26. It is being built as we speak. Our 911 call center, which is in need of a HVAC upgrade and has been for many years, may we add, is to be completed by October of this year, and an expansion and upgrade to our outdoor firearms training center, which is important for our officers to practice scenario-based training and drills to adequately prepare them for emergency situations. In addition to, the committee discussed options of providing a place for our SWAT team to train in an area that can simulate various situations and real-life encounters. And if it meets with your approval, Mr. President, I'm going to ask Ms. Farag to please lead us through the packet.
Please do, Ms. Farag.
Actually, I think Chair Katz covered every single thing.
And the reason I said this, I wanted to hear her say that.
Oh, yeah. And it was perfect. It was very comprehensive. And
Noted for the record. Everybody gets it right every now and then.
Thank you. Nice.
Okay. I don't see any comments or questions here. All in favor of that committee recommendation, please raise your hand. That is approved. We're going to move on to item number 10. This is Public Safety Technology Projects, and I believe this was a joint committee of the Government Operations, Fiscal Policy, and the Public Safety Committee. So even though he was a co-chair, I'm going to turn it over to Vice President Stewart to switch gears here as the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Chair.
Thank you so much. So Government Operations and Public Safety had a joint committee meeting to review 5 projects. We're actually recommending 4 move forward and holding on 1. And just as Council Member Katz just said, the importance of our public safety, and related to that and crucial to that is our technology systems. And so we had a robust joint committee discussion. And the projects we are recommending move forward is the county radio replacement project that provides for the phased replacement of voice radio systems. And the total project's cost is $31 million during the 6-year schedule. We have the Dickerson Radio Tower project that was added to the FY 21-26 capital improvement programs. This project will build a 450-foot communications tower near the public safety radio system equipment shelter in the Dickerson area of the county. We're also recommending the public safety server hardware upgrade, and this is a new project that provides for the replacement of the servers and the data storage that supports the public safety virtual private network and provides services for public safety clients, as well as the final project that we're recommending, which is the public safety system modernization project that provides for the replacement of a new police department records management system. And so we talked about all those and recommend them. The one project that we postponed review of was the IJIS CRIMS system within the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. We asked for more information on the scope and the interoperability with other county systems like the police department's proposed records management system, and our review is tentatively scheduled for April 8th. And I want to hear Ms. Frog say I did okay, too.
You did. Chair Stewart did a fantastic job, extremely comprehensive coverage. Thank you.
I will just note, I think you were at adequate and she's at fantastic. I will not read into the different descriptors that were used. We'll just say that everybody passed here, both chairs. With that, I see Councilmember Jawando, so let me turn it over to him.
Thank you very much, and appreciate the analysis and the packet. I did watch the joint committee, and so I have some questions around the public safety system modernization. Assistant Chief Frank will know we've talked about this before. I've talked about it with your predecessor as well in this position. And just for colleagues, I think this was, as the packet says, This project, which contained a lot of mini projects, came in FY09. All of the items in there have been satisfied except for this records management system. It's something that since I joined the council 6 years ago, we have been talking about as a big part of the puzzle, keep along with the puzzle language, to making sure that the department can track things appropriately, improve performance, make sure that you have the capabilities in the system to do what is constitutional and also required from state and federal law, and also that you can use internally. It's also been a big part of the discussion when we've had questions over the years about wanting new data from you based on previous laws that we've passed, whether it's the use of force law, the community policing law, or several laws that we've passed over the last several years. I was, as I'm sure you were too, I was extremely frustrated to see and disappointed to see that we still aren't there. In conversation after conversation, we talked about, well, this is going to help us. We're going to be able to track using this. This was $3.5 million, I think, that has been appropriated. So I have some specific questions about this, and just wanted to add some context and allow folks to respond, because I just think that where we are is just, and I think folks agree, is not acceptable. And the time that it's taken for this money to be appropriated, which it has been appropriated, to be under contract with an entity, to be told multiple times that it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Now where we are is we're canceling the contract. So is the contract canceled? I guess that would be my first question.
Darren Frank, Assistant Chief, Montgomery County Police. Council member, regarding the cancellation, I don't have a confirmation that has been finalized yet, and I cannot comment on that particular contract, but that will be the end result. But I can get you an update on when it actually is, the cancellation goes into effect. But we are not incurring any new work on that contract.
Right.
It's right at the final stages.
And when was, and if it's you or Ms. Farag or whoever's best to answer this, Tebbs, because I know Tebbs had this for a period of time, then in 2001 the police department took the contracting process over. Is that correct? 2021.
2021, correct.
Yeah, 2001.
When the police took over, a vendor had been identified, and it was a collaboration between Tebbs and the police department to do the RFP and make a selection under that RFP. And when we took it over, we took over the aspect of getting to a final contract with that vendor.
Got it. Okay, so so you say you're not sure if it's canceled, but it will be canceled. That will be the outcome. And Tebbs is here. I see. Yeah. So from May 2016 to October 21 of 2021, what was happening in those 5 years? Why did we not move forward with such a critical piece? What were the impediments?
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Mike Knuppel, Public Safety Chair or Public Safety Chief. What happened was we started with the CAD implementation. So we went out with a bid and went through the process of identifying the replacement for the CAD 911 system.
Yeah.
And with that RFP that we put out, we had the CAD vendors, if they had an RMS system available at that time, they could propose that as part of their response to the RFP.
So you jointly tied these two things together?
Yes, yes. So we went through that process. Decision was made based on the number of resources that were available at the time that we would focus on the CAD 911 implementation first. Once that was completed, then we would go back and do the law enforcement RMS. So after the implementation of the CAD 911, we looked at the various vendors that had submitted their RMS solutions, and there wasn't one that really met the needs of the county at the time. So we had to go back out with an REOI, RFP, and that's where we kind of handed it off after we went that selection, and we helped negotiate the contract and was part of that.
So you prioritized the 911 system, you asked for both, you didn't get something back that was satisfactory, so then you passed it to the police department in 2021.
No, they came back with various, there was two vendors, and one vendor had an RMS solution that they proposed that would meet her needs. But after we did the CAD 911 implementation, the team went back and looked at what they had proposed for the law enforcement RMS, and it turned out not to meet her needs. So we went out with another REI RFP, and that's what we did at the time.
I just wanted to mention that CAD stands for Computer Aided Dispatch.
That's correct.
And I always like to clear that up.
The night in which is what gets when people call in and
Right.
you got it.
Yes.
Okay, so to Chief Frank, in 2021, October, you assumed the responsibility. My understanding is, and then there were negotiations, and a contract was awarded the next year, the next October in 22, right? And then we estimated, we've talked about this over the years, but we estimated that was going to be 18 to 24 months to get everything going, and we were going to be rocking and rolling. Okay, so what happened?
So I can't go into great detail on the contract, but I can give you the basics, which we took a long time to ensure that we got a contract that represented this county. And we have prior experience where vendors didn't meet our expectations. And so we spent a good amount of time ensuring that we came to terms on something that we could stand behind in case things didn't go well. We didn't have any inclination that it wouldn't go well, but we wanted to make sure that option was there. So it took us a while to get to a contract that was agreeable to the county and also to the vendor, and we began work. Again, I can't comment any further on the work other than.
Is that because you just don't have it, or you're prohibited, or what?
I'm prohibited.
For what reason?
Due to an agreement around the contract.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess well, I'm sorry. Do you have another question?
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, none of us are happy about this at all. It sets us behind. It continues to make some of our work very labor intensive in trying to find data. We can still find data, and as we've discussed before, it's not exactly where we want it to be. It's not all of the things where our officers and our professional staff can collect data right away and put it into a system, and I can go to a dashboard and get information. That's where we want to be. What I can say is there's always opportunities, silver linings, if you would. When that contract was executed, when that vendor was selected, the options that exist today didn't exist then. And there are some big name players that are now in the business of creating RMS systems that will potentially, one of the projects we talked about CRIMS, right? Systems that have the capability to seamlessly interact with an RMS system, with programming that needs to go on, in surveying the land, because again, we saw that we were going to have to make a change. But in surveying the land, there are much better opportunities and much less expensive opportunities. At the end of the day, over the course of this next 8 to 10 years, I believe we are not going to spend nearly as much money as we would have on the other system. And it's going to be a better system that's more seamless. Now, that's a lot of talk, right? Because we have been talking about it for a while. But what I will say is the director of our technology division, who played a major role in helping to create the contract for which we were in once we were given the vendor. She is, in fact, she's been cooped up in her office this week getting this next RFP ready, because we are on an accelerated path because we need this work to be done. So she is working on it, and again, I can't, at this point, I can talk about what we envision and the opportunities here, but it doesn't, agreed, this is not a great outcome for us. We're not happy with it, but with our TEBS partners, with our county partners in the OCA, the Office of the County Attorney, we believe that this is the absolute best decision going forward.
I appreciate that, and I'm wrapping up. So there's no new money asked for, correct? So, and can you speak to how much money of the $3.5 million has been expended?
That's being finalized, and I can get you that it's not that much.
Okay.
No, that $3.5 million was more going forward in delivery of a project. We did. There was some very basic work that was conducted, but we'll get a figure on it.
And my colleague next to me here is CRIMS, is Crime Record Information Management System. So we like to pronounce the acronyms. Well, I would ask that, I saw Ms. Farag writing furiously, if we could just have follow-up. I know the Joint Committee will have follow-up, but I think this is something, you know how important this is. We've worked with your data management folks over years. One of my former staff is at TEBS now, right, sitting at the dais. OMB, but on the technology side. We just really have to get this right. It's so crucial to everything we're trying to do in community policing, so you can do your job better, so the community can know. And it's just, I'm glad to hear that it's being fast-tracked as a priority, but as you said, we've been here before. I know you can't, if someone doesn't do what they said they're supposed to do in a contract, that's obviously out of your control, but to the extent that we can move expeditiously. And one of the things that was mentioned in the Joint Committee was quarterly updates. I don't know if that was formally done, but I think
we decided not to do that just because of the discussion they had, but they are coming back. The Joint Committee has agreed to come back in the fall to get an update on all of these projects.
Okay. Well, I will make sure I'm there, and just thank you for I had to belabor this because it's just been something that is so important to the work, and we've been waiting so long to do. First proposed in 2009 in the 2009 CIP, and here we are. I mean, it's something we got to do. So I appreciate that.
And I agree, and I appreciate you recognizing, Council Member, that there are things that are out of our control. I can say for our partners in TEBS, our partners throughout this entire process on the county side, we have done everything that we needed to do, to include writing a contract that protects the county. And so it's unfortunate. Again, it was outside of the county's control, but I do hope you believe that what I truly believe is that we have a big opportunity to do even better than what we were planning. I'm very excited about the RFP to go out. I'm excited that me and my team are going to be from the basement involved in getting this executed.
I appreciate it. Look forward to the updates. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Appreciate the responses and the questions. Are there any other comments? I don't see any. All those in favor of the Joint Committee recommendation, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Next up for discussion is the Capital Improvements Program for the Department of Correction and Rehabilitation. We will turn it back over to the Public Safety Chair, Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First off, as we start, I think it should be noted that Air Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and they're coming up, I'm going to say something nice about you. You want to come up. That they received a perfect score on their mandatory reaccreditation standards. So congratulations. Our Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation has experienced an increase in its average daily population from just under 800 people in 2019 to about 1,000 right now. The committee unanimously approved three projects: the new Justice Center, the Wi-Fi upgrades, and a refresh within the medical unit and inmate cells. And if it meets with your approval, Mr. President, I mean, you're not paying attention anyhow, so it's going to meet with your approval. Let's ask Ms. Farag if she could please lead us through the packet.
There's not. I am paying attention. I'm seeing if the other person who we need for the final item on our agenda has made it into the building or not. Ms. Farag, please.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant mine, but no. Chair Katz again covered everything. I just wanted to add to this that the three projects have a cost of about $93 million over the next 6 years in the expenditure schedule, and that's actually a pretty significant increase of $24 million, and that's really reflecting the fact that the construction costs for the Justice Center project have moved into the 6-year expenditure schedule. But that's all I would add. Thanks.
Okay, unless you have anything else, Mr. Chair, if colleagues, I don't see any other questions or comments. All those in favor of the Department of Correction Rehabilitation CIP, that is unanimous. Okay.
It's easy.
Thank you. May they all be that easy, right? Okay, I see Ms. Kasiri is here. We have council staff who's coming back down. We're going to return as the final item on our agenda. We have the planning director, and I think the parks director may be joining us as well, though is not here yet, but is on her way. If she joins us, great. If not, we have the planning director here who can share their perspective, at least on his piece of this. We're going to return to the Wheaton project. Why don't I turn it to first to the chair. You can make any brief comments, and then Councilmember Glass can ask his questions, and then we can dispose of the item.
Good afternoon. Thank you for making it today. I would just say that I appreciate the question and concern from Councilmember Glass, because the entire Wheaton area also has the same concern. We want to see people back into the park and planning building, and in making sure that this retail space that we have in that headquarters of park and planning gets, for it to get the money, we need to make sure that it's going to be successful, and for that project to be successful, we need to ensure that we have people in that building. That was the sentiment of the question, which I agree, and we look forward to your answers in terms of how many people are in the building right now, what your expectations are. Thank you.
Well, why don't we start with that if you want to respond, and then Councilmember Glass can follow up with any questions that he has.
Thank you.
It seems like
Good
everybody
afternoon.
supports this item.
Yeah. So we are focusing on Wheaton only, Wheaton building. So we have 601 employee in Wheaton building. It includes employees from DPS, DEP, REC, CUF, and CEC. 175, 29%, have no telework arrangement. Additional 33% or 197 have situational telework, would be inspector. Maybe here or there they can do some sort of a telework. So as managers are mostly situational. We have 38% that have recurring telework. That would be assigned either Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So this is kind of a schedule. This is routine on a yearly basis. These employees are in that schedule. So there's a total of 600 employees. So this was based on the data that OHR had based on the agreements that each employee is required to sign. However, I checked into our time card or timesheet, MC time, and based on MC time, right now, last year, 37% of the employees' regular work hours were telework. This is because each employee is required to code if they are teleworking or on site. So 37% of the employees in Wheaton, for the last 2 years, every year consistently, they telework 37% of their work hours. So that adds up to little under 2 days per week per employee. Again, these are data from two different sources, but they are consistent. So these are the facts on Wheaton. And one more information about Wheaton. So as you know, DPS has a whole lot of inspectors, about 78, plan reviewers, about 63, and plan reviewers that right now, luckily, we are all automated, especially COVID really helped us to automate a lot of our business lines. They are actually mostly reviewing plans remotely. We have permit technicians, so as DEP, they have inspectors also. So these are a mix of employees that are either office employees or inspectors. As far as automation that I realized is just since I was collecting this information for today's meeting, I just learned that actually DPS, right? If you compare pre-COVID, post-COVID, almost right now, other than our well and septic, everything else is automated. So before COVID, we used to have 200 to 250 walk-ins. Right now, they have 30 to 50 walk-ins. They do a survey, so we do know that actually these customers are very happy because they're not driving to Wheaton Building. So basically, there are no walk-ins. That may be part of our problem. And they are happy customers, by the way. And then I digged into who are those walk-ins. The walk-ins are usually residents that are either have a question about a permit because they don't know the system, they don't know the way, or a small permittee, small developers that they have issues, they want to talk to someone. So they actually believe after we take care of the well and septic, a few other things, even that may be reduced, those walk-ins. 30 to 50 may be reduced to 10 to 50.
Okay, any updates from Parks or Planning? And then I'll turn it over to Councilmember Glass.
Sure. For the record, Jason Sartori, Director of Montgomery Planning. So I'll tell you, our policy on telework is actually consistent with what it was prior to the pandemic. Is we allow each staff member to telework up to 2 days a week, and they have to sign a telework agreement indicating what days per week they're going to be teleworking. Before the pandemic, we only had a handful of people who actually took advantage of that benefit. Now it's about 84% of our staff telework. Not all 2 days a week. So I could tell you of the 139 filled positions that we have at the moment, 22 people, including myself, do not telework at all. We have 109 people who telework 2 days a week, 4 people who telework only 1 day a week, and then we have 4 people who have like a hybrid telework where they might telework half the day for a number of days. In terms of what days people are in the office, Wednesday and Thursday being planning board day, understandably those are days when we have most people in the office. 73 people on Monday, 84 on Tuesday, 98 on Wednesday, 99 on Thursday, and then 64 on Friday. So Friday and Monday are our 2 lower days. And when I say in the office, obviously sometimes I'm here all day, right? Like today. Or we have forest inspectors who spend time out of the office. So these are days when, if they aren't out, on site, people will be in the office.
Mitty Figueredo, Parks Director. Our numbers are very similar to the planning departments for Wheaton headquarters. We have 174 employees at Wheaton headquarters. About 86% of those employees telework at least 1 day a week, and the vast majority of those telework 2 days a week. That is our policy. It is the same as the planning departments. You can get a maximum of 2 days a week telework depending on your work program, and at Wheaton headquarters, probably most people are eligible for some kind of telework. If you crunch the numbers, that comes out to about an average of 100 employees in Parks who are at work at Wheaton headquarters any given day of the week, but our Monday and Fridays are lower than the rest of the week.
Okay. Councilmember Glass.
Great. Thank you all for joining this afternoon, and you're still earlier and you're on time, right? Since this session wasn't supposed to start till 3:45, so appreciate your hustle here, and 3 of you are fixtures here anyway, so thank you. Again, I just want to frame the conversation and very much appreciate it because this is absolutely relevant to our investment, right? We invested in the Park and Planning building to help revitalize that area. And we're doing that. And we want to make sure that people are on the street so that they can shop and eat at all the local places. And before I support the $4 million investment in the ground floor retail, I just needed commitment that people will go to it. If we invest, people will go, right? And I understand the numbers, and I'm not going to get into the policy now, right? I know that the county and the county executive have committed to the regional goal of bringing more people back in local government. That is a COG goal. And I'm not quite sure where we are in that. I don't know if Ms. Kassiri, you know if we're meeting that COG threshold yet. We don't have to get into that now, right? But put a pin on that for potentially the operating budget or something else. But again, the worst case scenario is that we appropriate $4 million to redo this retail space, and the small business entrepreneur who puts their heart and equity into it fails because there's not enough people. That is the worst case scenario. That's why I'm having this conversation, so we avert that, and that our $4 million investment is met with robust economic activity that is supported by people in that building and people in the greater Wheaton area. I'm comfortable moving forward. It's just eyes wide open. I appreciate you all hustling to have this short conversation, but it's an important one. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Just a quick question following on that. My understanding of this project is that it is supposed to be economic development to support the broader community and the revitalization of Wheaton, not to serve the building necessarily. Of course, the building is part of the community and would be some of the people who would frequent it, but could you just respond to what the intention of
Sure. Yeah, I think the intention of the retail space.
The
intention of the retail space is certainly to serve the wider community. I think what Councilmember Glass is referring to is the design of the building may have, and the amount of retail space that was created might have imagined some of the people in the building would also patronize that space, which may have justified the amount of space that was developed in the first place. And sort of the general logic of including retail space at the bottom of an office building to sort of serve as an amenity for them as well. But yes, certainly it had a broader purpose than just to serve that. And I don't think the business would be intended to only serve the building.
Yeah, because I'll just say I would be a lot less supportive of this if the purpose was to support the building exclusively. I'm supportive of it because it's part of a much broader intentional effort that is multifaceted with many, many more millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars of investment in other areas to support the revitalization of Wheaton, which is a very important urban district and a very important area that we want to revitalize right across the street from a metro, et cetera. So I just wanted to note that. I appreciate the comments, but I think this is part of a broader effort. With that, I don't see any other colleagues ready to vote. So all those in favor of this committee recommendation, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. And with that, colleagues, we are adjourned.